About 90 minutes away from the stroke of midnight. Notable free agents, restricted, highlighted. You're talking about that bench with Toronto. All I remember is maybe Van Vliet on the move. LeBron Durant, obviously at the head of that. A lot of talk about Paul George, who is he in Oklahoma City? Is he at Westbrook's party? Are they going to get back together?
Why wasn't I invited?
All of that. Why wasn't I invited? Why aren't they on the fever? Maybe they don't have it. Let's start with Chris Paul. DA, is there any chance that he's not back here? And is the only question how many years and what it's worth after the injury we just saw last year?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can never say never, and I've learned that the hard way over the years. But I would be shocked if he wasn't in Houston. I mean, it's not just that was kind of the expectation that he would sign a max deal this summer.
As part of it.
As part of it. But also how they played. I mean, they were, I think, arguably a pulled hamstring away from the finals. I mean, I think most people believe, I believe, if he hadn't gotten hurt, they would have beaten Golden State. So that team's certainly good enough to be in the finals. That's certainly good enough to win a championship. So as long as they keep Clint Capella, and I know it's going to start to get very expensive for them, but if they can keep that group together, then I would be surprised if he was anywhere else.
Let me sit on the other side and play devil's advocate, Griff. You're sitting there, whether you're Daryl Morey, regardless of what was said beforehand, I'm watching Chris Paul. Great, our team's ready, but got injured again. I don't know. All these years, do I really want to max him out?
Well, and this is the thing that I think gets really complicated, and it was brilliant that Eric started us off with non-tampering-ish, because I think this is something where it's a really unique situation in Houston. Chris agrees to be traded to Houston. Opts into a trade scenario there. There's no chance in the world he made that decision without having the conversation about what comes next.
Theoretically, theoretically in the summer of 19.
Let's pretend, for the sake of argument.
Right.
So because of that, he had that conversation, or he and his agent had that conversation with Les Alexander, who then sold that team to Mr. Fertitta.
Tillman Fertitta, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So Tillman Fertitta buys that team, and he says, yeah, that's a really cool story. I didn't make that agreement. Now, no one made that agreement. But it really does set up an interesting nuance to this situation, because in addition to paying Chris what would be $205 over 5 and a starting point of $41 million, they also have to work in Clint Capella.
And you're already paying Harden whatever it is you're paying on $225.
I mean, you could be looking at a situation where you're so far over the tax, your multiplier becomes 3, 4 to 1.
Yeah.
So does the fact that they need to max out or feel the compulsion to max out, Chris, make them negotiate harder on Capella's deal? And does that then give opportunity to a team that might max out Capella to swoop in and get him? It's fascinating. It really is, to see the way that dynamic plays out.
And to your point, if they do wind up giving CP3 a max deal, which I think they will, how do they feel? How do they find 9 other guys to play? And then you bring Capella back. You have to bring Capella back. What's the point if you don't bring Capella back? So now, how do you keep Eric Gordon? How do you re-sign Mbah Moute, who's an important part of their team? How do you re-sign Ariza? You're still on the hook for Ryan Anderson for 2 more years. Nobody is taking that deal.
$18 million a year.
Nobody's taking that.
And are you stretching that number to save some money in the here and now? Maybe you do.
Well, I'll be honest. Eric Pincus, I want to know, how can they afford a halftime dance team after all of that?
Well, you're running into that Warriors kind of question, right? For the Warriors, it makes sense to pay that kind of money. But to the Rockets, now the Rockets had them on the ropes, and Chris Paul got hurt. So do you double down and invest in the guy who got you there, or the guy who got hurt and is aging? Do you want to pay him $40 million when he's, not quite 40, but getting there, close? And it's a problem. So $115 million in tax if they keep Clint Capella and Chris Paul. What about Ariza? Now, DA, you said no one will take Ryan Anderson. Someone will take everybody, right? Mozgov just got traded again, all right? It happens. So it depends what you give, right? Are they giving up a lot? They don't have a lot to give as far as firsts. They've already traded some. So they're kind of in a difficult spot, but Daryl Morey, their GM, is very clever. I feel like they've got to find a way out of Ryan Anderson. Maybe it's a stretch situation. We talked about that with Luol Deng, where you push his money out over a number of years and it reduces your immediate burden, because if you trim off $20 million, like Griff said, it's like a 4-to-1 multiplier. If you trim off 20, that could save you $80 million. So there's a lot that they have to figure out. I don't see how you stop being the Rockets, being that they were so close to being the Warriors. I think it's tomorrow's problem. I think you take it, like we said, take it on the chin now. Find a way out of Ryan Anderson, pay what it pays, and worry about it later. But, man, Chris Paul, $40-something million down the road, that's a lot to ask for.